There's been a flood of corporate money going into these midterms. The richest 10 billionaires in the country mostly align with Trump and make it pretty clear this time around.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the MeidasTouch Network. The billionaire class is in Trump's pocket, and it is going to take everything we have, every peaceful legal means, to push back. These are not normal times. We just saw Democrats boycott the State of the Union, which was both a striking display of solidarity and an acknowledgement, finally, of the moment we're in. We have seen popular acts of resistance occurring everywhere, most of all in Minneapolis, where the courage exhibited by that city's residents has lit the way for all of us. But there is another kind of resistance that might be just as effective as those street-level protests, and if coordinated with the on-the-ground actions, could well be one of the things that undermines one of the Trump administration's key pillars of support: big tech and its billionaires. I asked Scott Galloway to join me today to talk about Resist and Unsubscribe, a campaign to push back on corporate power by canceling subscriptions. Hear Scott out on this. As consumers, we have far more power than we think. For those who don't know Scott, he's a professor, a serial entrepreneur, and a best-selling author. He co-hosts the podcasts Pivot and the Prof G Pod. Here's our conversation. Scott, thanks so much for joining us. We'll jump right into it. Tell me about Resist and Unsubscribe and why you think it's going to work. It looks like parts of it already are working.
First off, thanks for having me. Look, I think that consumers don't recognize that they have a weapon hiding in plain sight, and that is the most radical act in a capitalist society is non-participation. And that if you look at where the president has checked back on his policies, it's been one thing when one thing happens. It's not protests, it's not media pressure, it's not even the courts. It's when the bond market or the stock market collapses. That's when he walked away from discussions about annexing Greenland. It's when he walked back his tariff discussions. So the question is, how would you send a signal vis-a-vis the markets? There are 10 companies that now account for 40% of the S&P. These 10 companies are highly sensitive to a slowdown in subscription growth. So kind of the weapon I find hiding in plain sight is that if you were to do an assessment or an audit of all your streaming media platforms, your LLMs, your ride-hailing programs, you might find that you don't need all of them. And just a small slowdown in subscription growth could potentially send a very strong message to the markets, to tech CEOs who I think have been as enablers, and potentially to President Trump. And just more specifically, action absorbs anxiety. It's great to be doing something with someone, with other people. And so far, it looks as if we're starting to have an impact.
We're going to put the link below in the show notes and in the Chiron, right, where we're talking here. But you're not just targeting these tech companies with a broad brush. I mean, as you said, the ones on the website have specifically enabled or at least turned a blind eye to some of the worst practices, the worst policies of this administration. And you want them specifically to feel the pain. You want their leadership to feel the impact of Resist and Unsubscribe because of their complicity in Trump's march towards fascism.
There's two objectives here. The first is signal. Consumers in America don't recognize how powerful a slowdown in economic growth can be. The fastest the government has ever turned on a dime was 6 years ago. It pumped trillions of dollars in the economy, new rules, new regulations. It wasn't because tens of thousands of people were dying. It's because GDP collapsed at 31%. Economic slowdown is what gets the government's attention. And then the second objective is incentives. Right now, Trump has done a great job of being an autocrat and creating incentives for big tech leaders to ignore his policies, even when they text me privately that they're sickened by them, and to enable them. Donations, cutouts for tariffs, $45 million fees for documentaries that make no sense, showing up to premieres, constant verbal support. Thank you for your leadership. We need to create incentives such that when the CEOs of these companies saddle up next to the president, they think twice before they openly endorse his actions, which they claim they're against privately. So I want to change the incentive structure here. So if I'm hoping that when Tim Cook goes to the premiere of the Melania documentary and compliments President Trump on his leadership, that he thinks twice, that this just isn't about his responsibility to his shareholders. It's his responsibility to America and the Constitution, but also, quite frankly, we're listening. And some of us have decided that if he's going to continue to support this descent into fascism or enable it, that maybe we don't need Amazon, or maybe we don't need Apple TV Plus. Maybe we don't need Apple Music. And what I have found is that what I'm suggesting is if everyone does an audit, they're going to find they're not only don't miss these things, but they're going to save a lot of money. And I don't want to be the arbiter of telling people what to unsubscribe from. What I have found is that I didn't know I was a subscriber to Amazon One, the healthcare service. So I was paying $199 a year. When I went to AT&T to unsubscribe and switch to Noble Mobile, I found I had 4 AT&T contracts for BlackBerries and iPads that have been in landfills for the last 10 years, where they've been charging me $60 a month. So it's a chance to save some money. It's a chance to send a signal to the administration.
I've felt this pressure for years to constantly replace clothes as trends change or seasons shift, especially with outerwear and layers. Stuff that looks fine at first, but once you actually rely on it, cold mornings, long days, travel, it just doesn't hold up. And that's frustrating. This time of year, a good hoodie is essential. It's something you reach for over and over again. But finding one that's genuinely warm, comfortable, and built to last isn't easy. That's why I wear American Giant. Their classic full zip hoodie feels different the moment you put it on. The fabric has real weight to it. The construction is solid. It's made with the assumption that you're actually going to live in it, not just wear it a few times and move on. And it's built to last a lifetime. Slate magazine famously called it the greatest hoodie ever made, and that reputation is earned. From the cotton to the zipper, it's made right here in the USA. What I appreciate most about American Giant is the quality and durability. Every detail feels intentional. The heavyweight fleece, the side panels that give you mobility, the reinforced elbows, the double-lined hood. It has a clean fit that works whether you're traveling, working, or just trying to stay warm. And the more you wear it, the better it gets. Softer, more comfortable, more yours. American Giant obsesses over the details, and they're deeply committed to the communities that make their products. Everything is made in America, no exceptions. They make staples that are anything but basic, like the premium Slub Crew tee and the No BS high-rise and slim roughneck pants featured in Giant magazine. For me, clothing quality matters more than just looking good. I want pieces I can count on year after year. American Giant delivers that, and you feel the difference every time you put it on. This season, snag the hoodie that will bring you comfort for life, the American Giant Classic Full Zip, and save 20% off your first order at AmericanGiant.com when you use code KEN at checkout. That's 20% off your first order at AmericanGiant.com, code KEN. It's Ken with a quick break to tell you about my Substack page, where you'll find bonus episodes and other exclusive content. And subscribing is a way to support this show directly without us having to rely on advertisers. For those of you who have signed up, thank you so much. It is growing harder and harder to rely on traditional media. Just look at what has happened over at CBS. So independent news is going to have to make up the gap. And if you believe in what we're trying to do here in the interviews and the commentary that this show brings you, please consider pitching in. It's free to sign up, and that itself is helpful because popular shows get recommended even more people. And if you're able to afford a paid subscription, they start at $8 a month. Every dollar goes back into what we're doing. Thanks for helping out. You give us that image of Tim Cook walking into the White House to bend the knee to kiss the ring. Is there still a role for shame in American politics? I have often said that Donald Trump's greatest political innovation is the abolition of shame. It's a man who feels no shame, but can we still shame the people around him? I understand the economic incentives that you are trying to create, but there have to be moral incentives that go hand in hand with those as well, right?
I don't think it's a zero-sum game. I think it's cumulative. And the most successful economic strike, the one people talk about, is the Montgomery bus strike. And there was a cinematic moment where a very courageous woman refused to give up her seat. And there was a lot of shame from the media and the general public in the other 49 states that they shouldn't be segregating the municipal bus infrastructure. But this is what actually moved the needle. Over the next 11 months, a pastor, Dr. Martin Luther King, organized thousands of carpools such that people who were not down with a segregated municipal bus line could get to work without taking the municipal bus infrastructure. That took $250,000 in fares out of the municipal bus system. And then after 11 months, they acquiesced. So I think it's cumulative. I think protests are fantastic. I think the work you guys, great work you guys are doing at Meidas. I think it's all it all adds up. It's all meaningful. But the weapon we're not picking up that may be the cannon here is not spending. These companies that are enabling, T-Mobile was supposed to sign up 992,000. They only signed up 962,000. They missed their subscriber growth by 30,000 people. They lost $12 billion in market cap. If we can show enough movement here, and I think we're really on the cusp here. I know we've sent the signal. The media is talking about it. Representatives are talking about it. Senators are talking about it. We've achieved that. People are learning that their economic power in cumulatively as a coalition collectively is really powerful. The next part is incentives. We need Sam Altman, Satya Nadella, Sundar Pichai, Tim Cook, all thinking twice before they become wholesale sycophants, bending the knee to this slow burn to fascism. They need to recognize there is another side of the coin here, that we as consumers are watching and we are communicating and voting with our credit cards.
One of the things I most appreciate about how you have messaged this campaign is that it's not virtue signaling. It's not a purity test. You can pick and choose. I got to be honest. I'm not getting rid of my iPhone, right? Or my MacBook.
Me either.
My job literally depends on it, but there are things I don't need. And I hope people will take a minute right now to go check out the website while they're listening. But there are dozens of options, one or two or three of which you probably don't really need right now. Do you really need Apple TV Plus, for example? And I'm sure that was intentional, this rejection of the virtue signaling approach, and instead giving people options, plenty of options, so that they can take, baby steps into signaling this new economic disincentive for these companies.
Yeah, I don't want to tell people what they should unsubscribe from and when they should or shouldn't resubscribe, and what the trigger points are for if and when they decide to unsubscribe or subscribe. For example, I've gone from 5 streaming platforms to 1. But when I suggested giving up all of them, my kids looked at me as if memo to self, smother dad and sleep tonight. I still have Spotify. But I realized I don't need Amazon Music. I don't need Apple Music. I canceled my Uber membership, and I found out I was taking 350 Ubers a year. So I've started taking the subway in New York, which is amazing, and the tube more in London, and I'm going to save a lot of money. And it's up to you. I don't want to tell a single mother who's not making a lot of money that she has to give up Amazon Prime or Netflix such that she can get cheap caloric intake and cheap entertainment. That's not my right. What I'm suggesting is, if you're like me, you're suffering from anxiety over what's going on. I have found that action absorbs anxiety. And going to this site, I've tried with a series of links, tried to make it really easy for you to unsubscribe. And just as in dry January, when you have an opportunity to recalibrate your alcohol intake, you find here that you're probably spending money where you don't need to. Those automated monthly withdrawals from your credit card or your bank account, they add up, and you forget that you even have them sometimes. So this is a chance to save some money and send a signal. But I want to be clear. I don't feel like I'm in a position to be the moral arbiter of what companies you engage in or don't engage in. I want to send a signal and make you aware that you have real power with your consumer dollars. I want to make it easy should you decide to unsubscribe. And then it's up to you if and when you resubscribe.
If and when we get through this horrific period in American history, if we send an electoral signal in November of this year, if we finally relegate Trumpism to the trash heap of history in 2028, are we going to need structural reforms? Because it feels like we are approaching the point, looking at the list of companies on your website, that some of them are so integral to our lives that we can't do without them. Are we going to need to revisit possibly the kind of antitrust actions and breaking up companies like we saw 100 years ago with railroads and other monopolies?
I think you're hitting on the correct point, and that is, even if we manage to get Trump out of office or flip the House and the Senate, we're going to have the same thing over and over unless we have structural reform. And I think I would put Citizens United probably first. The second thing I would put is probably gerrymandering, so we don't send just extremists from the left and extremists from the right. And then I'm a big fan of antitrust. The market has become too concentrated. There's been a slow but steady but dramatic leak of economic power from labor and consumers to shareholders and to management. As a percentage of GDP, Wages are near an all-time low. As a percentage of GDP of corporate profits, they've almost never been higher. So we have regulatory capture, we have gerrymandering, we have billionaires now are about a quarter of all political spending. There's absolutely going to need to be structural reform. And just to that end, and I don't think I'm being hyperbolic, I'm not an alarmist, but I'm older than you, but people of my generation who've enjoyed relative peace and prosperity, I was never called up and asked to go to Southeast Asia and fight. I've paid the lowest taxes of any capitalist society of this prosperity. I've enjoyed exceptional freedoms, assisted lunch, Pell Grants, University of California, technology infrastructure built by middle-class households that I could build businesses on, a pro-capitalist environment without White House intervention saying what companies should acquire what companies. I have a debt. And I believe Civil War, World War I, World War II, plagues, internment of the Japanese, 1% of America owning slaves, controlling the government. We have had moments, dark moments like this before, but Americans were equal to the task and they rose up. And the emotional plea I'm making to other people in my generation who have registered so much prosperity because of America, do you feel as if you have a debt? And when you get towards the end and your kids effectively ask you, Dad, what did you do in the war? What are you going to say? This is our moment to rise to the occasion.
Beautiful note to end on, Scott. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for your good work.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.